this and
Give me all you got!
And so you're still practicing magic at this point in time too.
Oh, I love magic. I am like addicted to magic. But, you know, to me, that shows you how naive I was.
Absolutely. Yeah, you had obviously no idea what was going on.
You know, here it is. Adult pedophiles are watching my videos, and I'm thinking it's children.
Yeah, they're writing on little kids' paper from school.
Right, and they're writing fan mail to me, and I'm not realizing it's an adult. If I'd have known it was an adult, I don't know that I would have liked it.
Right.
Why is an adult watching me have sex? Why are adults watching all of us do stuff? You know, this doesn't feel right. You know, I was in a lot of incest videos. Now, they're called incest videos, but nobody on screen is related. That's not really your mom. It's not really your dad. And these aren't really your brothers and sisters. But my mom in the video is probably in her mid-20s. And my dad is also maybe mid to late 20s. So they would have had to have had us at a very young age. But these women, the man that plays our dad is having sex with our sisters. And the woman that's our mom is having sex with all the males. And some of the males are as young as 3 or 4 years old. So the man and the woman are also pedophiles. You know, they want to be in these videos because they like having sex with children. But again, that's not, I mean, the mom and the dad really look young.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're big kids. So mom and dad are like big kids and we're like small kids and all the kids are having sex. And, you know, and I've had people say, did you feel this was wrong? Well, it was wrong in that I knew not to tell my dad.
Right.
You know, I didn't want to stop doing it. I knew that smoking cigarettes was bad. You have to be 19 to buy it. So I'm not 19. It doesn't say I'm not supposed to do it for any other reason, though. It just says you have to be 19 to do it. So anybody can do it. You just have to be this age or older. So what's the harm in me doing it? I'm 7 years younger. So I'm not allowed to drink till I'm 21, but I'm still allowed to drink when I get to be 21.
Right.
I'm 12, so that's 9 years away. Why can't I drink now? It's just an age restriction. It's not health. It's not against the will of God. It's not, you know, my parents didn't tell me I'm not allowed to drink. They just told me that if I took the first drink, I might be an alcoholic. Well, I took the first drink and I wasn't an alcoholic. So I can do this. You know, to me, Solomon had 1,000 wives.
Right.
Why is it bad for me to have sex with 1,000 people? Solomon can do it, I can't.
And growing up in a Baptist house, I can relate to all the things that they tell us not to do. You know, and it's just like, you're not doing this because we said you're not doing it. And you accept that for an answer. But then, like, you got to see the other side of the coin. Every single thing that we were told not to do, you were then presented with, and that's okay over here.
Right.
So what kid wouldn't, you know, embrace that?
I performed in my first assisted abortion when I just turned 14, and I was told to get a ball of Play-Doh and practice with a scalpel stabbing the ball of Play-Doh because I'm going to be involved in an abortion in 9 months. And I was like, cool. And then I went home and I looked up the word abortion because I had no idea what it meant. I know that I thought it was a dirty word because when I was pretty young, my parents were talking about something and they whispered the word abortion. So I thought abortion must be a dirty word. Now that I'm an adult and I have a pro-life ministry, abortion is absolutely a dirty word. But I thought it was a dirty word like the F-bomb's a dirty word. So I don't know what it is. I look it up in my dictionary. It's not there. I went to the library, had 2 books about at least 1 inch to 2 inches thick that were about abortion. And I got through school on Cliff Notes. I am not reading 2 inches of a book to find out what abortion is.
Yeah.
I went back to my coven and I was like, hey, I heard I got to do an abortion, but I don't know what that means. He goes, oh, you're killing a baby in the womb. I was like, is that legal? He goes, oh, yeah. In the womb, legal. Out of the womb, murder. Okay. So I practiced with the ball of Play-Doh or an apple or an orange. But I was also told, when you do this abortion, it's just a lump of cells. It's just some tissue. It's not a real baby. You're not going to see anything. You're just going to see, this little bloody mass come out. And then you got to get some blood on your hands so you can do your X. And that's all there is. Now, why we're doing the abortion is that this guy was trying to pass some legislation in town. And he tried every legal avenue. And this means money in his pocket if he can get it. But no legal avenue will pass it. So he figured, I'll ask for a hex that'll cost him some big money, but the hex comes with an abortion. And it was taught to me that if you give the devil what he wants, he'll give you what you want. So the devil wants dead babies. Okay, give him a dead baby, he gives us what you want. So that's why we were doing it. So we had a sex party with all the men, all the boys aged 12 to 15, and a female that was called a breeder. He intentionally gets pregnant so she can get an abortion. And this would have been like her 2nd or 3rd one. And she's 19 years old. And so we meet at her house, and all the guys have sex with her. And then she gets pregnant. And about 9 months later, we're at the farmhouse. We're going to do an abortion. We've got all the men on one side of the farmhouse chanting and praying to Satan to keep police away, which is an odd thing because we had the sheriff's department was involved with our coven. I watched a girl die. I watched a girl die, and they called his deputy. He came over, wrapped her body up in a carpet, and carried her out and said, I'll take care of it. And then I checked the area newspapers for over a month trying to find where a dead black girl was found, and never found it. Never appeared in the newspaper. But I mean, we were in the Everglades. You could have easily gotten rid of her by throwing her to the alligators, and they ate her and disposed of her. So, and she OD'd. How I saw her die. She was like my age in porn. But we were shooting porn, and I was going. This is the room where we kept our lighting and our sound equipment, and our cameras and our film. Well, they kept sending me in there to get stuff. And there was this little black girl on a bed, on like a little cot. And I walked up to her to say hi to her. And she speaks to me, but not in English and not Spanish. It was the only 2 languages I knew. And I don't know what language it was. She said something to me. And then there was a line of men going down the hall, and they're coming in one at a time to have sex with this girl. And I'm walking in and out of this room, And these guys see me and they don't care. They're just continuing to have sex with the girl. After she had, I don't know, maybe 100 or so men, then they came in and they gave her a shot in her arm. And then that was one of us. Gave her a shot in the arm. Her eyes roll back in her head. And she looks like she's high as a kite. But then one of the times when I was in there, she foamed at the mouth, said a couple of things. Her eyes looked really odd. And then she collapsed on the bed. And I think she died. And I ran out and I told somebody. They came in, they checked her, and they said she doesn't have a pulse or a heartbeat. She's dead. But there's still a line of men, and these men continue to come in there and have sex with her. So she's laying dead on the cot, and there's still about 20 more men having sex with her.
Good Lord.
And then eventually, there's no more guys having sex with her, and this cop comes in, the deputy, he comes in, he wraps the body up in the towel or in the carpet, and he says, I'll take care of it. And he walks out with the dead body and never heard about it again. So I'm getting ready for this abortion. We have the men down at one end that are praying and chanting to, give the devil, keep them safe. We have like 50 women on the floor naked, and they're on their knees and they're chanting our bodies ourselves. There's a Baphomet statue, but it's not the same Baphomet statue that's used now. That statue is new. It was our representation of Baphomet. Baphomet is the god of abortion. And then we had 13 high priests and priestesses surrounding the table. The woman is laying on the table with her legs up in stirrups. And there's an abortion doctor and an abortion nurse. And I'm there wearing the red robe with a face mask on and gloves. And I've got a scalpel in my hand. And it's all I know is that I'm going to be getting some blood on that scalpel. And then I stop that and I go over to do my hex. And the doctor, it's a late term abortion. So he delivers everything but the head. He turns a breech and delivers the entire body. And the head is still inside the woman. And then I realized that they lied to me because this isn't a clump of cells or some tissue.
Right.
This is a full-size baby. This would survive. They brought this out because they told me it's a lump of cells. It's not going to survive outside the womb. Well, this thing would have survived outside the womb. And I imagine your people don't want to hear what a late-term abortion is, what happens. So I'll spare you the gory details. But I have to include some of them because after the baby's dead, they then use a tool that dismembers it, and they throw it out to the women on the floor to devour everything but the bones.
Wow.
They cannibalize the baby.
Is that a typical thing that happens? Like, is that a part of the customary hex? Like you said, when this hex is being done?
At mine, I've only seen that happen like twice. Maybe 3 times, but I think twice. But there's other testimonies like mine on YouTube where the woman was at a Wiccan event and she saw that happen.
At a Wiccan event?
And somebody else was at a satanic, it was an abortion, a Wiccan abortion. And there was another satanic abortion and cannibalism took place. The funny thing, in 2015, the Lepanto Institute came out with an article. Former Satanist says he used to perform abortions in abortion clinics. And that went viral. It went viral around the world. And for the first week, it came out on Monday. So on Monday or Tuesday, Satanists came out and said that they don't do abortions. That's not what they do. They're not about abortions, and that I'm lying or I'm wrong. Worst case scenario, I'm lying, but if they give me the benefit of the doubt, maybe I'm just wrong. They don't do these things. And also, by the second or third day, the Wiccans came out and said that that's insane. They don't practice abortion. They don't believe in abortion. abortion takes a life, they're all about the sanctity of life. Now, that was Monday through Friday. I got that. And it was one attack after another attack after another attack after another attack. But Satan's right hand doesn't always know what his left hand is doing. Because on Saturday, the Satanists went to a local Planned Parenthood. This was the Satanic Temple, I think. They went to a local Planned Parenthood, and they did one of their performance arts where they've got women's hands tied behind their behind their back, and they duct taped their head, their face, their mouth, and then they poured milk over their heads, and it was supposed to be showing that they were under the subjugation of man's laws and rules, and that they're not allowed abortion on demand. But they think that because of their religious freedom, that abortion is part of their religious freedom, and they should get abortion on demand. So that was Satan telling me that we do agree with abortions, even though all week I heard that Satanists don't agree with abortions.
Right.
And then on Sunday, the Wiccans came out to a Planned Parenthood and said that abortion was a woman's sacrament.
A woman's sacrament.
A woman's sacrament.
Wow.
So in the Catholic Church, we have 7 sacraments. One of them is marriage.
Right.
But we don't have abortion though. So that's not one of our sacraments. So, and then after the Satanic Temple came out and said that, and the Wiccans came out and said that, then the abortions and the Wiccans and the Satanists left us alone on that page after that. Because then it was like they couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And be like, well, they said this here. They said this over here. So, Satan didn't know what his right hand didn't know what his left hand was doing.
Fortunately enough. And because I've been telling people for years, not having witnessed it myself, but having heard your speech, your talking engagements and some of your interviews, I said the spirit of truth is moving with this man. And lo and behold, they opened an abortion clinic where they could do free abortions because under their constitutional rights to practice their religious freedoms.
Right.
So they've taken the main stage to say that you're right. That's a part of their. It always has been a part of their religious practices.
Well, they sued the governor, I think, of Minnesota, because in Minnesota you had to come in, ask for an abortion, and they had to, by law, give you a pamphlet, and then you had to leave for 2 weeks, and then you could come back and try again, but you couldn't get it on demand. Right. You had to read this pamphlet and wait for 2 weeks. And so they sued because they said under their religious belief system is that because of their religion, they get abortion on demand. And so they sued the governor, and they've done that in multiple states. And now they have their own abortion mill. And, and it's named after the Supreme Court justice that shot down Roe versus Wade.
Right.
It's named after him. And if, his mother had aborted him, then they wouldn't have been able to shoot down Roe versus Wade. But, they're not thinking ahead. God would have had somebody else do it.
That's exactly right. I firmly believe that.
So, I've been saying, it's kind of funny. I've been saying abortion is a satanic sacrifice since my first talk in 2011. My book is called Abortion is a Satanic Sacrifice. I have a CD set by the same title. And in it, I tell you the 4 steps it takes to shut down an abortion mill. And our methods of shutdown that we know of, 49 around the world. Now, a lot of them are in Texas, and a lot of them are in Louisiana. But, they're happening all over the United States and all over the world. The last time I heard about one shutting down would have been like 2000. 18 or 19, I'm realizing that my satanic coven has lied to me, and I've caught them in a lie that it's not a lump of cells, it's not some tissue, it's an actual baby. But then it's taken from me, and they cannibalized it, and I'm doing my hex. It was like blood on my hands. Now remember that during I'm doing all this time, I'm still going to church every Sunday. Because they told me to keep up my grades and keep up appearances that I'm still their normal child. Keep going to church. Now, some of my coven members went to my church. Some of my deacons were Satanists. Some of my deacons have watched the porn that we make, and then they're at church talking about how moral they are. And all my deacons were Freemasons, and they asked me if I wanted to be a Freemason. And I heard what they do, and I was like, it doesn't sound like fun. No, I don't want to be a Freemason. And my dad also turned it down. He got offered when he was in the Marines. They asked him if he wanted to be a Freemason. He asked about it, got all the details about it, and then just decided it wasn't worth his while. So he didn't do it either. So, but when I was 15 years old, I had told my dad, every sermon, every single one, they read a verse in the Bible, and then they interpret it as that verse has to do with giving the Baptist church money. Every Bible verse. Now, I get it that there's an offertory hymn, and you're supposed to give 10%. You're supposed to give a tithe. Right. And I get that. You got to keep the lights on in the church. You got to pay the salaries of the preacher. You've got people you've got to pay, and rent you've got to pay, or a mortgage, and you've got to keep the lights on and all this stuff. I get that. And we all pay for that. But I don't get that whoever wrote this Bible wrote every verse to be about donating money to the Baptist church when the Baptist church wasn't here 2,000 years ago. And here's an example. Jesus wept. You know why Jesus wept? Because he saw the future state of the Baptist church and saw that the parishioners did not donate enough money.
Wow. Well, that's a far-reaching interpretation.
Yes, they're rather loose with their interpretations.
Absolutely.
So I told my dad when I was 15, if I hear one more sermon like that, you can still come to the church and pick up my brother, but I won't be there. I'm going to walk home. And he goes, well, how will I know? I said, well, Dad, you listen to the sermon every morning on the radio. Every Sunday it's broadcast live. So you can listen to that. And you know that when he says it, and he says it every Sunday because you hear it. So if he says it again, I'm walking home. I'm tired of the Baptist preacher begging for money from the Bible, because I know that whole Bible can't be. Old and New Testament is about donating money to the Baptist church. I don't think so.
Yeah.
So they drop us off Sunday morning, church service, Sunday school and church. And it's into the sermon, and he reads the Bible verse, and whatever it was, he brought it back to donating money to the Baptist church. And I got up and I walked out. Told my brother, I'll see you at home. And I walk out. It's 3 blocks to my house, maybe 4. My mom is outside watering the flowers. She said, your father is mad. I was like, why? It was because he heard them talk about money again and knew that you'd be home. I was like, I didn't make the Baptist preacher speak about that. I didn't put a gun to his head and say, you have to say this. I said I'd appreciate it if you wouldn't say it. My dad walks outside. He goes, you're the most irresponsible person I've ever met. I said, what? Because I didn't call the Baptist preacher and tell him not to say it? That's your job. You're an adult. He's an adult. You could have easily called him and told him these things, and then he just skipped this week of saying it. If he'd have preached for 1 week and not say it, and I'd have gone back the next Sunday and he did preach on it, I wouldn't have walked out because he gave me 1 week without it, which means he could talk without it. But, and God would have heard me say this. If God is influencing his talk, God would have told him, don't talk about that this week. But apparently God's not influencing his talk, and you didn't call him and warn him, and he said it again. I'm not going back. I'm tired of that. And if I want to do that, I'll just read the Bible at home and then say, now give the Baptist church some money.
Right.
Jesus wept. Give the Baptist church some money. They were both naked and ashamed. Give the Baptist church some money. In the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. Now give the Baptist church some money. I can do that on my own. I don't need to go to church for that. So my dad was mad at me for a few weeks. You know, my mom would wake me up for church, and I'm not going, thanks. I can go to Sunday school if you'd like, and then I'll just walk home after that. And they were like, why bother? Okay, why bother? And then
you were sincerely offended.
I was. We listened to the radio broadcast, and they read the Bible verse, and I said, it's going to be about money. My mom's like, how do you know it's always going to be about money? I said, because it always has been. Just listen. And then sure enough, blah, 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 Baptist church and money. You know, and I was like, how do you not know it's going to be about money? It always is.
Yeah.
Like, they don't play a different tune. They only know one tune. You know, their one tune is whatever the Bible verse is, give the Baptist church some money. So I
even at that young age, you knew that not every Bible verse, that he was sowing these verses that could have helped people, that he could have been teaching properly. You, even at that young age, knew, like, this guy is just putting his hat out. You know?
Well, but it wasn't just him. We had multiple Baptist preachers. All of them are teaching from the same book. And they're all quoting about, you know, the Baptist church needs money.
Right.
You know, the sermon is about that. And then later you have the offertory hymn, you know, and my dad tried to combine the two. I said, they're not the same. You know, so I ended up quitting that. I did my first assisted abortion at 3 months before I was 15. I kept doing magic, and I was getting ready to graduate from high school. And you know, I was thinking, I got to find me another satanic coven because I can't come home weekly and come back to this satanic coven. I need to find one where I'm going to be. But there's no internet at this time.
Right.
And I know they're not going to advertise it in the town square, but I found it because they advertised it in the town square. Now, there's one other place they advertise. If you go to an adult bookstore and look in the Swingers magazine, now, first of all, there's people in the parking lot of the porno store that you don't want to look in that car and see what they're doing. So you got that problem. Then you got to walk in the door and see all your skeezy neighbors that have now seen you in the adult bookstore.
Right.
You know, so now you know all your skeezy neighbors are looking at you going, oh, Zachary's skeezy too. Then whatever you buy, you've got to walk back through that parking lot to get to your car, and your chance seeing whatever it is they're doing in their car, that's going to leave you with a memory you can't get rid of. And then you got to look through a Swingers magazine, and again, you might see people you know. I don't want to see people I know in there.
Right.
But when you look in the ads in the back, Satanic Coven, they'll give the name of their coven, looking for membership. Come enjoy some dark fun. You know, or it'll advertise sometimes what they do, what they're involved in. You know, do you like making movies? We make home movies. And that's telling you right there they're involved in child pornography. But you have to know how to read between the lines and know what that means. Because home movies For some people, it's not going to be child pornography. Some parents shoot home movies,
Right.
and they're innocent. These would not be innocent. The Satanic Coven advertising home movies. That's not an innocent tape. So, but I don't want to go into something like that to find the coven. So, when the first day of school is on a Wednesday and the student union is open, and you have the Republican and the Democrat student union, and the Baptist and the Catholic student union, and the Satanic and the Wiccan student union, I was like, whoa, it's right there. So I went to their coven meeting for the first time. They do it on a Saturday night. And these guys are just boys and girls away from home for the first time with no adult supervision. And they get together and they think that Satan is all about getting drunk, getting high, having sex. Well, I've been doing that since I was 12. I don't need a satanic coven for that. And they make up magic spells on the spot. Now remember, you need repetition, intention, and demonic presence. Well, they'll say something like, I'm going to shotgun this beer. When the can is empty, I'm going to wave it above my head 3 times, and then I'm going to throw it into the trash can. And if I make it, tomorrow I'm going to have a brand new yellow truck. So he shoots the basket, makes it, but the next day he doesn't get a brand new yellow truck. It's like, that's not how you do a magic spell. Or they do something else stupid. We're going to play a game of quarters, 21 in a row to drop in the glass. I'm going to get a brand new car, or I'm going to get a straight A's on my next exams. And it's like, that's not a magic spell. So, and then on Sunday, guess what they did? They went to church.
Of course.
Because they don't really believe in the devil. They're not worshiping Satan. They're just, it's a clubhouse to meet in, have a good time. Let me get drunk. Let me get stoned. Let me go have sex with 2 or 3 girls. Now tomorrow I'm going to go to church. I'm going to get sanctified. Wow. I'm going to get sanctified on Sunday. And then Monday through Friday, I'm going to be a student. Saturday, I'm going to go have sex with a couple more girls, get drunk, maybe take some drugs. And the next day I'm going to get sanctified again. Well, I called back my first coven and I was like, okay. When I was waiting for school to start, I read a book. And in that book, it mentioned a place called Bohemian Grove. Don't know where it is. It didn't say, but it gave me a lot of details. And then it also talked about the Illuminati and what they're about, and a satanic coven that's out to take over the world. Where can I find them? And they said that's World Church of Satan or Satan's World Church. 2 different titles, same coven. They're also a Diablo Sex coven. My first coven was a Diablo Sex coven. And Diablo Sex coven is involved in human trafficking, child prostitution, and child pornography. There's even covens called Diablo Sex. And if there's police listening to this, you should go check them out. Because if they're embracing Diablo Sex, they're embracing human trafficking, child prostitution, and child pornography. So I'm like, all right, I'll be comfortable there. Let's how do I get them? They gave me a phone number. So I call the number, give your real name. I was like, why would I give her another name? He goes, because your name is Tommy. You might give the name Tommy. Don't do that because it's not on your driver's license. Because you're going to have to give your driver's license at the door. I was like, okay. So I give my real name and I'll leave a message. I have to wait a little bit for them to call me back. And they call me back. They ask how I heard about them. I told them my first coven and the name, and that I was the mage, and that I'm looking for a new coven. So they said what the name of theirs was, and this is the address you'll go to, and this is for a party, kind of just a meet and greet, and see what you think of them. And then I have to bring my driver's license, and then I'll probably have to park about 2 miles away. I was like, why? He goes, well, we get really busy. It's a big event. Okay. And I have to be there at 9 p.m. So I drive there at 9 p.m. and I'm there. There's no place to park near the building. And the building is about the size of a super Walmart, but I'm not sure that super Walmart exists at this point.
Right.
So I drive away and I'm looking, there's parking lots all along the street, but they're all packed. And I finally get to one and there's a security guard there. And I pull in and he directs me to where to park. So I park there, I get out of my car, and he says, "You've got about a 2 mile hike back to the place." I'm like, okay. Like, you don't have a car, you can't give me a ride? He was like, "I got to watch all the cars here." So I have to walk. And it's like an hour later, I'm getting there. And now it's 10 o'clock when I'm getting there. And they mentioned you were supposed to be here at 9. I said I was in my car. And then I had to pull away and find some place to park. And it took me an hour to walk back. So they check my ID and then they bring me inside. You have to walk past this heavy black curtain that is masking a lot of sounds. Because when they pull that curtain aside, you're like slapped with music in the face. It's like really loud. And going beyond the curtain, you're in there with like 10,000 people you've never met. And there's tables with food. There's like tables with hors d'oeuvres and carrots and celery. Then there's another table that has sandwiches. There's another table that has pizza. There's a table that has beer. There's a table that has wine. And there's a table that has hard liquor. There's a table that has weed. And there's a table that has pills. There's a table that has cocaine. And there's a table that has like heroin, has needles, ways for you to inject yourself. I was never into things like that. And then there's a large group of people sitting on couches and recliners talking. There's people walking around with drinks in their hand or doing drugs while they're walking around. There's in the back corner to the right, there's a bunch of beds, king-size beds all pushed together, and a bunch of naked people on the bed, and they're all having sex. And they invited me to join, and I'm like, no, I'm good. This is the AIDS epidemic that's full on at this time. I am not wanting to experience something that I don't want.
Right.
Something that will last me the rest of my life, and it'll be a shorter life than I planned on it. So, and then I'm looking around the room. There's a bunch of people dressed really nice, talking to a guy that's wearing a tuxedo and a top hat, has a wand and corpse paint on his face. And so I'm curious at that. That looks like the people that are in charge. And so I need to get into that group, but I don't know quite how, besides just walking up and introducing myself. And, I'm afraid they'll just look at me and go, "Who are you?" and walk away from me.
Right.
So
now you'd seen this once before as a kid, right? Like this character with the grease paint.
Right. I had been at a sleepover and I was like 13 years old and I got up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I've got to go to the bathroom, get some water. And I see this guy walking through the house. My jaw drops. It looked like a member of KISS wearing a tuxedo. And I was looking at that thing, and that is the coolest look ever. And he looks up and sees me and winks at me and walks into the kitchen. So I went to the bathroom, got a drink of water, and then I thought, man, I really should follow him into the kitchen, but I didn't. I just went back to bed. The next day I asked, "Hey, who's this guy? I saw him here." And they're like, "Oh, you dreamed that. That didn't really happen." Okay. So my coven's lying to me. That's fine. I'll find out eventually. So eventually happened. I'm at this coven meeting, and I grabbed it. That this guy in the tuxedo and stuff walked right past me. Not the same guy, but the same look. And I grabbed the guy next to me that I've been talking to. I was like, "Who is that? What is that? How can I do that?" And he's like, "Well, who ran your coven?" I said, "We had a really big coven. We had anywhere from 110 to 150 members at any given time. We were run by 13 high priests and priestesses." And he goes, "Okay, well, our coven has 1.1 million members worldwide. And we're run by a CEO and board of directors. And that guy is the High Wizard. He does the official magic of the coven. There's between 2 and 5 of them in the world, but the number could be as low as 1 or as high as 10. I was like, how do you do that? He goes, you have to get the devil's attention, but beyond that, I don't know what you have to do. Well, I know that abortion gets his attention, so I know how I'm going to get his attention. And, well, by the way, do you know when the largest number of High Wizards existed?
When?
It's mentioned in the Bible in the Old Testament. It was the 450 prophets of Baal.
Wow. And they were all High Wizards.
They were all High Wizards, and they were all killed at the same time in that challenge, that godly challenge.
From Elijah.
With Elijah, where, you know, he pours water all over his display, and he's having them pray to their God to light this thing on fire. And I think he even says, he makes a comment, he's basically asking, is your God sitting on the toilet?
Yeah.
He's not able to come light this fire because he's on the toilet. And so they're unable to do it. And then God sends down lightning and lights Elijah's, which is soaked in water and standing in water. And he also lights on fire all of the ones, and it consumes, it kills all the High Wizards.
Yeah, and the ones that aren't killed are put to the sword.
At that time,
I love that part.
High Wizards were allowed to be together. Now High Wizards are commanded to never be with another High Wizard. You know,
really?
You have one at a place at a time. You can have 2 in the same state, but not in the same town, and definitely not at the same event. And the reason for that is that God killed 450 of them at the same time. So, and they were all in the same place. So it's like now there's a limit to how many there can be. And you have also a list of potential High Wizards, but you don't hire more than 10 at a time. So if those 10 keel over dead, you know, you can put more people in their place.
So is there like an apprentice? Is there like an apprenticeship? Because I remember you said that Satan himself picks the High Wizard, right?
Right.
So you didn't have like somebody who was like your understudy, basically.
Well, when I started, I got in with the High Wizard. I started telling him I wanted to be the High Wizard.
Right.
And he said, you need to come with me to a lot of my abortions then, and I'll put you in my reports that you were my assistant. You set up my altar, you know, and that you want to do this job. So I assisted in like 5 more abortions, and I was setting up his altar. And I would stand there and watch him do what he had to do. All he had to do was get blood on his hands, and then he would do his hex. And so when I was 21 years old, I got this notice in the mail that I was called before the CEO and board of directors. And I also know that when people get called to do that, sometimes they're never seen or heard from again. Mm-hmm. So in Florida, there was a 2-week cooling off period to buy a handgun. So I went and bought a Sig Sauer 9mm and about 200 rounds of ammo and a clip belt that goes down your pant leg. And I bought all this in preparation in case I get there, in case I've done something wrong and they're going to try and kill me. I ain't going out like no stuff. I'm taking as many of them out as I can with me at the same time. I might die, but I'm taking a lot with me on the way. So I show up, they put me in a plush leather chair up against the wall, so no one's going to come up behind me. And they tell me that I've been chosen to be the next High Wizard. And I asked how was I chosen. They didn't say anything. They handed me the High Wizard Handbook, which is as hokey as it sounds. It's like a hand-drawn High Wizard on the cover. The cover is light blue. The rest of the pages are white. That when you first open the cover, it's no one can tell you what to do. I was like, this is the job for me. They said, you can ask You can suggest, but you cannot tell me to do magic. It's my job to do magic, but I don't have to do it if I don't want to. Somebody presents me with a spell and I decide I don't want to do that spell, they can't make me do it. They can just give it to another high wizard. Now, I only turned down one spell in my entire life as a high wizard. And I had my reasons, but it wasn't the reason they thought. They had asked me, I met with a couple of people that wanted me to do a magic spell that would clear the way so they could assassinate a pope.
Oh, wow.
And I said, no. And they're like, are you Catholic? I went, no, I'm Satanist. Like, but you don't want to do this? No. And they're not really allowed to argue with me, so they just said, okay. And they said they'd find another high wizard. And I said, that's fine, you can do that. But the reason I wouldn't do it, and this is actually a silly reason, but, you know, most covens are run by a high priest or a high priestess. The Catholic Church is run by a priest or a bishop or a cardinal, but they're all priests. I don't know what they do as priests. I don't know if they use magic or not. And the Pope is the leader of these priests. If I allowed the Pope to be assassinated, might the 10,000 or so priests that exist come against me? I'm one guy. It doesn't matter that I'm the high wizard. I got to go up against 10,000 priests. Are they using magic? What are they using? I don't want to fight 10,000 priests. I'm not doing this magic spell.
So it was you were being a pragmatist.
Right.
That makes sense. And no, so they can present you with something. You said there was a CEO and like a board of directors, or
yeah.
So it's ran almost like a corporation. So they can present you with something, but
Right.
if you tell them like, no, I don't want to do that just because I don't want to do it, they can't really be upset with you, right?
Right. They can't.
Or there can't be any kind of like repercussions or anything of that nature.
No. So one of the main jobs you have is magic. Another one is making rock stars. And another one is settling disputes. So if two people come to you, you have like every 90 days, you hold court. And two people come to you and they've got an issue. Instead of going to court, they come to you. And whatever decision you come up with, you're supposed to be as fair as you possibly can be.
Right.
And you explain your answer as best you can. You know, I'm making this decision because of this. Now, once you've rendered your decision, they can't decide, I didn't like his answer, I'm going to court. Once you've made your decision, it's final. And they have to honor that. And I tried to be, like I said, as fair as I possibly could be. I never knew any of the people that were coming to me, so I never chose sides. But another thing you do, let's say the CEO wants to do something and the board of directors doesn't. Well, now there's a stalemate. So I have to come in and I have to take a side. I have to either choose the CEO or choose the board of directors. I am friends with everybody, but I am not supposed to take sides based on friendship. I'm supposed to take sides based on what is the most intelligent answer. So both sides explain almost ad nauseum to what they want. And then I listen to the other side, and then I'm allowed to ask questions. And then I think about it, and then I decide, and whatever I decide, they can look disappointed, but they can't scream at me, they can't yell, they can't insult me, and they can't ask me, am I sure?
So your decision is final, no questions asked.
Right. So I'm having a good time as a high wizard, and I'm making rock stars. You know, now this was an immensely fun job for me. Not necessarily because making the rock stars fun. That's not the fun part. The fun part is 6 months later, when they've got a top 10 song in the charts and they're having a big party at their house and you're invited, and you walk into a rock star's house, and of course, everybody wants to be friends with the rock star, but the rock star gives you a hug and tells everybody in the room, I am who I am because of this man.
Wow.
And now everybody wants to be my friend, that they also can be a rock star. And so I go, it's called a warehouse deal, because you go to a warehouse, and it would be like in the warehouse district, like in Los Angeles or Hollywood. And you go to the warehouse. I'm there in a limo, and I have an entourage with me. Now, back then, nothing was computerized. So now I would imagine it's all computerized. So the person has signed up to be there. And they've been told by their director, their producer, their publicist, their agent, friend, somebody has said, this is the event you need to go to. Agree to do whatever it is they ask you to do, and you'll be famous. So these events happen about every 90 days. And I show up with my group. There's a guy with a clipboard that's got everybody's name on it. But there's more than one guy that has that. And you come up, you say your name, they look for you. And then I ask, who wants to be famous? Everybody raises their hand. Everybody wants to be famous. I'm like, okay, what are you willing to do to be famous? And usually you get answers like, well, nothing with animals or children, but anything else. Well, that's not who Satan wants. Satan wants the person that's willing to jump in the mud and be drugged through it.
Yeah.
It could be a boy or a girl. It could be a child. But you have to be willing to jump in the mud and be drugged through it. So everybody that has a caveat in there of, no, I wouldn't do this, I draw the line at that, I just keep going. And there might be 10,000 people in this room. And I got to keep repeating the same phrase over and over again. Who wants to be famous? What are you willing to do? Oh, we're not interested in you. Take them off the list. Come back in 90 days. So I'm coming again. What do you want to do? Now, some bands have got all their equipment set up. They're ready to play. I don't care. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to hear anything you have to say, except that you're willing to do anything. And there was this guy who couldn't sing or dance. Now, these are things he's telling me. I can't sing or dance. I can't write music. I can't write lyrics. I can't even write a poem, but I want to be a rock star. Okay. What are you willing to do to be famous? I'll do anything. All right. What's anything? Give me an example of what anything means to you. He said, if you put me in a room with a 3-year-old naked girl and a horse, I'm going to have sex with at least one of them, both of them, if I think that's what you want. So I pull out a tier 2 card. I am tier 1. This is tier 2. It has the New York skyline on one side and a phone number on the other. I said, you call this number, you're going to be filmed and photographed, but you do whatever it is they say to do, and you will be a rock star within 6 months. I will see you on MTV in 6 months. And he's like, okay. And then we have I know in this particular warehouse, somebody must have had a child at some point with them, and they left the Dr. Seuss book in the warehouse. So I had somebody go find that and bring it to me. And I said, could you read me this? So he opens up the Dr. Seuss book and he starts to say it. He starts reading it. And just before it rhymes, he closed the book and said, I don't get it. And I was like, you can't even make a Dr. Seuss book rhyme. Wow. So, but 90 days later, I saw him, I think, on VH1 and on MTV, singing and dancing in one of the most popular boy bands of the 90s.
Wow.
And he was super famous. And remember, he can't sing or dance, but he's singing and dancing. And, I'm just like, wow, there you go. He did whatever it was they told him to do. However, I made friends with rock stars, and I would ask them, "Oh, what do you have to do?" I know that they give you like options of things to do, but I don't know what those options are. And then you can decide not to do it. And I know if you decide not to do it, you're not allowed to try again for 3 years. And in that 3 years, you're thinking about, I could have done that, but I chose not to. And now look at the next 20 people that are now rock stars. That could have been me. My songs are better than them. I would be a millionaire right now. I could be driving a Lamborghini. I would have a mansion. I would have $1 million deal. I'd be famous. I'd have a different girl on my arm every night. But I chose not to participate. So now you're thinking you need to do this again. You would do another warehouse deal, get the card, call the number, and this time do it. And so I had a few friends, and I asked them, what did you have to do? What happens? And he says, you go to a hotel, and there's always cars there, and the hotel looks brand new, but there's nobody actually staying there. You park your car there, you go inside, you have to give them your ID. You take your ID and they make a copy of it, and they say they'll give it back to you when you come back down. You have to sit on a couch and wait. They make you a key, and then you they give you the key, you go to the elevator, go up to your room, go in the room, close the door. There's a diamond-shaped white table, and it has a long, like, printout on it. It's got the instructions on it, and there's a glass bowl with some envelopes in it. And in the thing that's written, it tells you have the option of taking out 2 envelopes. Now, there's like 4 envelopes in there. You can choose 2. If you choose the first one, open it up, read it, hold it up to the camera that's just inside the door above it. You have to show them what you're being told to do. If you decide not to do that first option, then you can reach in and get a second envelope. And you read that, and you hold that up to that camera. If you decide not to do either one, you fold them both up, put them back in their envelopes, put them in your back pocket, come down in the elevator, go to the front desk, turn them in, and they know that you didn't do anything. And they'll tell you that you can try again in 3 years. And you're thinking at first that, that would have been the grossest decision of my life. I'm glad I didn't do that. But then for the next 3 years, you get to watch all the people become a rock star instead of you. And you could have been any one of those, but you didn't do that. You chose to sit it out. You don't want to be a rock star that bad. But in 3 years, after you've seen all the Taylor Swifts come through, and all the Avril Lavignes come through, and all the Britney Spearses come through, and you realize that you're better than those people. You're better than Bruce Springsteen. You're better than Pink Floyd. I don't think anybody could be better than Pink Floyd, but
I agree.
this argument, no one is better than you are. But yet all these people are rock stars and you're not. So these are your options from what I've been told. You could get, and I'll start them off with what I think is the least gross and go to what I think is the most gross.
Okay.
You might put it in a different order than me, but this is my order. The least gross is that, and you have 3 hours to complete this, and you're on film, and they're taking still photos of you. When you decide to do it, then there's a number, the corresponding number in this that you look for the door in your room. You're in a giant suite, and it says like A. So that's room A, that's room B, that's room C, that's room D. So you have to decide which one you're going to do and then go to that room. So room A is a cup of vomit, and you have to drink it. You've got 3 hours to drink it. Now you can throw it back up after you've drunk it, How gross must that be? Now
Man
you
alive.
twice. So, but you can throw it back up. You don't have to re-drink it. Once you've thrown it up, that's fine. You paid your penalty. You drank it all down. Now, I know from being a kid and drinking the grossest medicine in the world, hold your nose, tilt your head back, slam it. That's what I would do to a cup of vomit. I would hold my nose, tilt my head back, slam it. Now, I have no doubt that I'm going to throw it all back up, but I don't have to swallow it again. To me, that is the least gross of the other three.
Wow.
The next one is you're given a large bowl of animal feces and you have to finish it. Now that's fresh. You got to smell that and take bites of it. You can't just swallow it. It's not a cup of diarrhea. You can't just tilt your head back, hold your nose, and let it go. You're taking one bite at a time. I can't imagine anybody taking that option.
Neither can I.
The next option, if you get lucky enough to get this option instead, and to me, this option is worse than eating poop or drinking vomit. You have 3 hours to have sex with as many dogs and cats as you can. Now, I can't imagine having sex with a cat because that seems like you're going to lose certain body parts and it's going to be under their nails. They're going to tear you up. Not that a dog's going to be happy about it either, but I think the cat's going to hurt really bad. The cat's going to hurt, but he's going to hurt you. It's going to be a bad day for you. And you're going to have to explain not only why you have scratch marks all over your body, but why you've got a cat stuck to your face. And that seems like that's a bad day. And the worst one to me is the last one. You're put in a room of 12-year-olds and younger that are all accustomed to human trafficking, and they're here for you for this event. You're going to have sex with as many of them as you can in 3 hours. Now remember, this happens to rock stars, heavy metal stars, pop stars, rap, R&B, country stars.
Across the board.
Yeah, I know of an opera singer that did this. So
Wow.
Of all the different ones, who do you think recently probably did the pedophile one? I don't have any proof of that, but if you look at what he's being charged with, I would say P. Diddy.
Yeah.
I'd
have to agree.
I have been saying for 15 years what people are doing, and people have disagreed with me all along, but then it comes out in the mainstream news. I talk about these are the things that rock stars have to do to become a rock star. Oh, no. My favorite rock star wouldn't do that. Like 12 years ago, I did a talk it's 10 years ago, in the cathedral in Venice, Florida. And the cathedral is where the bishop stays. That's where he goes to Mass. That's where he does the homilies at Mass. So the cathedral is the bishop's church. He invited me to come there and speak to the youth. So I did. And the people there were so convinced that Taylor Swift is a goody-goody and she would never do stuff like that. And I said, you're going to find that she may be a goody-goody now, but give her a few years and she's going to be practicing magic on stage. She's going to be worshiping Satan out in the open. She's going to be hanging out with known Satanists, and she's not going to be goody-goody anymore. It happens to every rock star. Britney Spears, Miley Cyrus, everybody steps off the rails eventually, and they show their true colors. Men, women, it's across the board. Everybody can't be good all the time, especially when they're not good at home. And, people didn't believe me. What's Taylor Swift doing now? Magic on stage when she's performing,
Yes.
hanging out with known Satanists out in public. She's practicing magic herself out in public. He's admitting that she's a witch.
Yeah,
So,
now she's into politics as well, and on top of all those things, and
now she's supporting Kamala Harris. I heard somewhere she was paid $1 billion to support Kamala Harris, and that she's also supporting the LGBTQ plus community.
Right.
I can't support something that, one, goes against God, but two, I don't even know what all that stands for. I'm supposed to stand plus. What's plus?
I guess it's whatever else they want to add in the moment. But I'm glad you mentioned how they're doing these rituals on stage, because it seems like, especially in the past 10 years, I'm a musician myself, and I'm a big fan of music, and I'll be 40 next month. But I remember, like, coming up in my 20s, teens, going and seeing concerts and whatnot. They were completely different just 20 years ago than they are now. Now it seems very witchy, I guess, if you say.
Stuff that you couldn't have done 50 years ago now is like mainstream.
Right.
Stuff that you couldn't have even done 10 or 20 years ago now is mainstream. I mean, it used to be you could have a satanic band. I mean, you could sing about Satan and do whatever you wanted to do. King Diamond, for example.
Right.
But Merciful Fate. But you didn't see it in public. You heard a song, but you didn't see him performing a magic spell on stage. Now we got some artist caused a fan to become possessed at his show. I don't remember which artist that is. I'd have to ask my daughter.
I want to say it was a rapper.
It was.
Yeah, I forget his name.
I said it was Travis Scott.
Travis Scott, absolutely. And he's had when those people were trampled at one of his concerts, he was and they tried to whitewash it, but he was saying that was a part of a ritualistic sacrifice.
Right.
That he caused that on purpose, and they he got in trouble for saying it and said, "Oh, well, that was just dark humor." But there's nothing humorous about that. People lost their lives.
Right.
And I don't think he was being humorous whatsoever. I think he was telling the truth.
At the Super Bowl, there was Taylor Swift sitting next to Ice Spice, and they're doing magic spells up in the booth. And the camera's on them, and they don't care. You can see them doing hand gestures, and she's doing a magic spell right there. And I mean, that's mainstream. That's at the Super Bowl.
What do you attribute to that, Mr. King? Why do you think they're so blatantly obvious with it now? Is it because of the naivety of the people, or?
I think it's a combination of things. It's Satan used to, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was proving he didn't exist. So it used to be Satan was hidden. There's 7 steps to getting possessed. You don't just instantly get possessed. You do something wrong and bam, you're possessed. It doesn't happen like that. It's a series of small yeses. Did you see the movie Nefarious?
No, I haven't actually. I've been told by everybody I need to watch it.
You can watch it on YouTube. You have to pay for it. It's like $20, but it might be out on video by now. In there, the demon describes how possession takes place, and that it's a series of small yeses and affirmations that take you from the first step in getting possessed is temptation. It's not even a sin. but he tempts you with something. Are you going to commit the sin? That's a yes or a no. If it's a yes, we go to the next stage. And we have like obsession, oppression, temptation. Eventually you get infestation, and that's of items or your house, not of you. And I don't remember. I'm missing a couple.
Occupation, I believe, is one where they can come in and occupy, and then like you said, the infestation after the occupation, the door is open for them,
and you have possession,
right?
But you're not instantly possessed. It's a series of small yeses, and you're eventually there. That's the same thing with the world. The world started off with gay people being gay. Back 60 years ago, the American Psychiatric Association said there's an abnormality in your brain, and it's called homosexuality. That's not normal. You're not allowed to even think those thoughts. But a few years later, they said, you're allowed to think those thoughts, but you're not allowed to act on it. Then a few years later, they said, you can act on it, but it has to be in the privacy of your own home, in your bedroom, the door locked, the windows closed, nobody can see what's going on, but you can do it in the privacy of your own home with a partner. Then they said, there's a gay bar open down the street. If you want to go, you need to wear a different disguise when you leave than when you get there. You need to change cars on the way and on the way home, just to keep you safe. Then we started having gay marches, and they were warning against the gay marches. Then they were okay with the gay marches. Then they were telling them to go in big numbers, so in case you have to stand up for yourself.
Right.
Then civil unions became legal in one state. That was in Vermont. And then I think it was illegal in Massachusetts. And then marriage became legal. But it took 50 years or 60 years from now, or 50 years basically, from the time you can't think those thoughts to it's completely normal. Let's go get married if we're gay.
Wow.
Now, the bad part now is that a few years ago, they said that pedophilia is an abnormality and you can't even think those thoughts. Then they said you can think those thoughts, but you can't act on them. Since we've already been down this road,
yes,
and we know the curves, the bumps, speed bumps, the hills, the dips, stop signs, and the traffic lights, how long do you think it'll take us to get from point A to point B this time? Since it took
a whole lot shorter period of time, because they're already building up the sympathy for it. They say, oh, well, that's something that they can't help. And it's, I believe, just like back in ancient Rome, how it was normal for encouraged even. Yeah. Right. And it became a part of the social norm. I believe that that's what the devil wants again.
Well, as far as homosexuality goes, there was a exorcist named Saint Damien that lived in the 11th century. And he was exorcising somebody. When the demon manifested, he bound it in the name of Christ and made it answer questions. And the demon said, now at that time, there was a homosexual scandal going through the church. I'm like, wow, some things never change. So he was asking about sin. Can demons make us sin? No. Demons can tempt you. They can put thoughts in our head or images in our head, and we can be tempted. And they can lead us all the way up to the sin, but they can't make us sin. We have to make that decision on our own.
Right.
But when we decide to sin, they know we were just in a state of grace, and that means in union with God. And if we sin, we're no longer in that state of grace. And if we die at that point, we're going to hell. And they watch us commit the sin, and then they dance with glee because they made us sin. They influenced us enough for us to do it. But This is what he went on to say. When they tempt somebody with homosexuality and the person gets convicted and they're like, I'm going to do this, demons know why sex was created. And they know that sex between a man and a woman is a beautiful act that creates life. And that is a miracle. A man and a woman can actually do a miracle of God. They can get together in a union, have sex, and have the point of conception, become a baby, and be given a guardian angel. And when two homosexuals have sex, it is so repulsive to the demon and so vile, they can't watch. Now let that thought sink in for a second. Homosexuality is so disgusting to demons, they can't watch.
Wow. That's heavy duty.
And you've got gay people that buy gay porn and watch that and then have sex. And the demon's in the house, but he's not watching the porn and he's not watching you because he finds it all disgusting.
The same demon that would lead you and tempt you into that sin.
Right.
Who's trying to bring you into a fallen state.
Right.
Is so disgusted by the actual acts of it that the sin that he is presenting in front of you, he cannot even watch you commit.
Right.
Wow. It says a lot.
That says a lot, and that really says a lot about us. That we are willing to participate, not me personally, probably not you personally.
No, sir.
We as a general term,
we the people.
We the people are willing to be so vile that demons can't even watch, and God gave us the free will to do that.
So we're taking God's free will and autonomy that he gave us and doing something so repulsive that demonic entities are too disgusted to watch.
Right. Have you ever seen a MAPS flag?
What's it called?
It's a rainbow flag, and it says MAPS.
No, sir.
So you don't know what MAPS is?
No.
It's minor attracted persons.
Minor attractive persons.
Now, what they say is they are not pedophiles, because pedophiles act on it and have sex with children or molest children. Minor attracted persons are attracted to minors, but they don't act on it. I'm like, no, you're still a pedophile. But they've aligned with the rainbow flag. So that's the LGBTQ plus. There's the plus, it's the MAPS.
And like you said just a few moments ago, that's how it starts. Very slowly, very casually, until they're just out in the open with it.
Have you heard of NAMBLA?
Yes, the North American Man-Boy Love Association or something like that.
Yeah, have you heard their slogan?
No.
Sex before 8 or it's too late.
Wow. And and from my understanding of it, that NAMBLA has like big money contributors.
Yeah. And they've been trying to join the LGBTQ plus community for a long time.
And there's supposed to be a divide, I guess, because a lot of the people in that community, even though it's all perversion, they say, oh, that's just too much perversion for us.
Right.
But I mean, where is a real dividing line when it comes to that kind of stuff? Obviously, they have their supporters.
Well, NAMBLA is not allowed to be in them, but MAPS can be. What's the difference? In 2014, I spoke in France, and they told me that it just came before the people to vote on legalizing pedophilia. Wow. And they said it was defeated. You know, the people still have a conscience, and we're like, no. But it's like, who in your government decided that we would bring that before the people?
Absolutely. Who presented that?
Okay.
As even being an option.
Right. You know, it's like, now what I've also heard, and I don't know if this is true, I hope, on the one hand, I hope it's true because I've repeated it a few times. So I'm hoping it's true in that respect. But as nasty as it is, I'm hoping that it's not true. I've heard that the state's looking at legalizing pedophilia, and not just pedophilia, but pedophile brothels is Nevada and California.
I haven't heard that, but I can believe it.
Well, it seems anything that they'd say about California would be believable.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got a new law that because they don't have room to bury people anymore, so they're going to bury them in places and then grow food on top of them so they get the nutrients of the dead body.
Wow.
But how many nutrients can you get from a person that died of cancer or AIDS?
Yeah, that's now in the tomatoes or the
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
There's something about California.
Well, not just California, Canada. Canada lowered the age of pedophilia. Children can now be under 18. And that doesn't, they can be under 18 and still do something to somebody over 18. And it's legal as long as the child is 17. Then they lowered it, I think, to 14. And they say that they're doing this for the children, but that's not the children. You're protecting the pedophile.
Yeah, absolutely. For the children.
And they're talking about lowering it even still, but you have to wait a little bit for that to be lowered. Then, because Canada doesn't want to be defeated by California as far as how weird stuff can get, in 2015, 9 years ago, they legalized bestiality.
I don't even know what to say to that, Mr. King. That's wild.
Have you ever gone to Canada?
No, sir.
Okay, if you ever fly there, when you're flying out, they'll ask you if you visited any farms. And I don't know why that is, and I want to ask them, is that because you consider a farm a mating place?
Right.
Like, is that where I can find a girlfriend? Is that a farm? Like I can sleep with a horse or something like that? I can sleep with sheep?
And what's the justification for that? I mean, these animals have no understanding of the act that it's even in being engaged in. So that's animal abuse.
Right. Well, Trudeau, I don't know if he still is, but Trudeau was dating the minister of France. That's another man.
Wow.
So, and Trudeau is also married.
Right.
To a woman. So he's dating the prime minister or whatever it is of France. He's supporting everything that's LGBTQ. If you sidewalk counsel, you're arrested. You can't show a woman a different point of view than killing the baby. If you're not,
they're throwing a lot of Christians in jail up in Canada, Mr. King.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a conference there in October, and it's like, will I be arrested at the conference? I don't know.
We'll definitely be praying for you.
Thank you. And it's a pro-life conference. That makes it even worse because they're so pro-death there.
Why do they worship? And I say worship because it seems, or have at least a high affinity for transsexual women.
Yeah, but have you ever heard what the surgery involves? I mean, you take hormone blockers,
right?
And then you have to either, if you catch them early enough, you can stop their breasts from growing. But if not, you have to actually go under the knife and have them cut off.
Yeah.
But for a girl, they generally do not give them a penis. They enlarge their clitoris, and that's their penis. And it's like, that's disgusting.
Golly. And they're with the males, like they chemically castrate them.
Chemically castrate, and then in the case of some of them, they totally take it off. And then in some of them, they're given a wound and they have to take pills because your body thinks it's an injury and it's constantly trying to heal, and the hole is trying to close. And so it's a bad deal all the way around.
Absolutely.
And then what a lot of these people don't realize is that they're not happy with their body at all. And they think that I need to be a girl, I need to be a girl, I need to be a girl. Then they're given the surgery. And for the first 3 or 4 years, they're on top of the world because this is what they wanted. They're finally a girl. But after that 4 years, about the 4.5-year mark, they realize that fixing the problem didn't fix the problem.
Right.
And they're still unhappy. Some people have the reverse surgery and go back to what they had because they were just as unhappy there, but their body wasn't mutilated. You know, and some people can't go back, and a lot of those people end up committing suicide.
You're absolutely right. The suicide rate is for such a small, for less than 1% of the population of the United States. Their suicide rate is astounding. And
one of the biggest shocks to me in 2022, Lucian Greaves came out at the first SatanCon in Arizona and said that their membership is 300,000 people around the world for the Satanic Temple. In 2023, they had SatanCon in Boston, and he said that their membership is now 700,000. So they more than doubled their membership in 1 year, and that 90% of their members are trans.
wow.
That means 630,000 people around the world are trans. I would have had no idea that number was that big.
I wouldn't either. I wouldn't have even been able to guess that. And the fact that the lion's share of them are Satanists.
Are Satanists, right. I did a talk in Fresno maybe 6 years ago. And it was kind of funny because when I got there, my friend John was with me, and he traveled there, from Kansas with me. And I said, John, I need you to sit next to me so when I ask questions, you can tell me what they're saying. And he said, I can't sit in front of a crowd this large. I looked around the room. I said, there's no more than 800 people here. He goes, I don't want to sit in front of 3 people. Fine. So, I got somebody else to be my volunteer. But we're doing this talk. During the Q&A, this guy stood up, and he had like a book with him. And he says, I want to show you a book that my daughter brought home. And I said, talk to me when the Q&A is over. I don't want to take up the time for a book that they can't see.
Right.
We can't really talk about in public. So we'll talk about it later. So the Q&A ended, and I went into a private room for this guy. And he brings me this book. He said, my daughter is 7 years old. She's in the 2nd grade. She brought a book home, a workbook home, and said that she needs help with her homework. So I said, okay. I'm like, I'm an active parent with my kids. I help them with all the older ones with their homework. I'm more than happy to help my 7-year-old. So I sit down at the table with her. She opens up the workbook, and he says, I'm looking at this page. Now, it's a picture of a little girl with long hair to her shoulders. The little girl is naked. Wow. It's not a painting, and it's not a photograph. It's hand-drawn. And it's just a single line, pretty much. The hair is a few lines. But then she has breasts, which is basically nipples, and she has a vagina. And then down at the bottom of the page is a cucumber, a banana, and ice cubes. And you're supposed to circle the item and draw a line as to where it goes.
Wow.
And they're teaching children how to masturbate. So the man gets offended and tells his daughter not to do any of it, and he calls the teacher. And the teacher refers him to the principal. And the principal tells him that the school board voted on it, so you need to talk to the school board. So he talks to the head of the school board, and he tells him that he's offended at this book. And he said, sir, you had the opportunity to come to our meeting, and you chose not to show up, so you didn't vote. And he says, when did I get invited? And he says, we sent a notice to your phone on this day. And he looked at it, and sure enough, it was there. And in your email on this other day. And he looked it up, and he found it. He never read it. And he says, who showed up? He says, no parents showed up. So we voted on ourselves. And it came very well recommended. It was, I think, edited by a former editor of Playboy.
Wow.
And so he took his daughter out of public school, and he went to a private school. And he said, I took my daughter out of public school because this is what they're learning. And it was like, my body, my pleasure, something like that. And then it was an entire workbook about masturbation. And the private school was like, no, we don't do anything like that. He goes, great, sign my daughter up. So it was expensive to get his daughter into the private school, but he says it's worth it because she doesn't have this workbook anymore.
Yeah, she's not exposed to that kind of stuff. Like,
yeah, she's not being taught how to do these vile things to herself.
Right, at 7 years old.
7 years old. The school didn't think anything of it.
That's what I was about to say. Like, where's their mind? Like, what's the excuse? What they say is the educational value of something like that.
I was in a conference called the Truth Speakers, and it was myself, Jesse Romero, Abby Johnson, Archbishop Vigano. I'm missing some. I'm missing about 5 people. There was like 10 big names at the conference. I say there's 9 big names in me. So
you're a big name, Mr. King. You're too modest.
I'm listening to Abby Johnson. She used to work at Planned Parenthood, and she was talking about the programs they used to have. Like, they had workbooks that they would take into the schools of really young kids and teach them about masturbation and teach them that it's okay to get an abortion. It's just a medical procedure.
Wow.
Right? Not to be ashamed. If you get pregnant, no big deal. You get pregnant at a young age and you can't handle it. You don't want to direct your school career. You don't want, your friends to leave you or your parents to get mad. Come in here. You don't even have to get their permission to get it done. You catch a cab.
Teaching them to circumnavigate their family to go.
You get an Uber or a Lyft. Come right in here. We can give you an abortion. You can be done in a couple of hours, and your parents never have to know. When I wrote a script, and the first project, it originally was going to be a DVD. And then when I was done with it, I had hired 6 companies to do the graphics. And one by one, they all told me they couldn't do these graphics. And so finally, it ended up being a CD project instead. And it was a 2 CD set. And then so many people liked it, they wanted it in a book form. So I made it into a book. And that was called Abortion is a Satanic Sacrifice. But I needed to get some materials from Planned Parenthood. And I figured I'm writing a book about Planned Parenthood in a way. So I can't just walk in there and get their material. I've been on their website. I've gotten as much as I could from there. And even to have a ruse so I could somehow have a reason to be in there.
Right.
So I had a friend that agreed to ride with me in my car. And then she would sit in the car in the passenger seat, and I would park right next to the sidewalk so I could walk right in. But they could easily see her in the car. And so I walk in, and I said, hey, me and my girlfriend wanted to ask some questions about getting an abortion. And I whispered the word abortion. And she says, oh, you don't have to whisper it here. That's all we do. I was like, okay, right. But what's the youngest girl I could bring in here? I mean, let's say my girlfriend is under 18. Now they're looking at her in the car. She's just sitting there with a perpetual smile on her face. And, they said, what age is she? And I said, well, she might be 17, or she might be a little less. So as we're talking, I confess that she's 16. Then I confessed that she's 15, then 14, then 13. And then I said, to be honest, she's 12. And they said, you don't need any ID. You don't even have to give your own ID. You can sign whatever name you want to the form. Give her whatever name you want to give her. Say she's 18. We don't take her ID. We don't check your ID.
Wow.
As long as you have the money to get it done, and we can bill your insurance, or you can just pay us cash. If you pay us cash, it's totally non-traceable. There's no proof you were ever here or your girlfriend was here. I said, so I don't have to contact her parents. He said, no, for all we know, you're the parent.
Wow. And this is the person in the clinic telling you this.
Yes. And I said, so, and I'm clearly at least 40 years old at this point. I said, so me and my 12-year-old girlfriend could come in here as often as she gets pregnant? She goes, oh yeah. Every time she gets pregnant, bring her here.
Wow.
You won't give her any trouble. No one will ever know. So, and then she gave me a bunch of the pamphlets. I was like, thank you very much. And I went out, got in the car. We gave each other a hug. I kissed her on the cheek, and we drove away. My friend is 19 years old. But at that time, she looked like she was 12.
Yeah.
And she was about to go in the convent. She was going to be a nun.
So you did a little undercover, like 007 action.
Yeah.
Get the information you needed for your book. That's awesome.
Satanic Temple says abortion is a satanic sacrifice. If you live in a state that doesn't allow abortion, you can go on their website, join the Satanic Temple, and they will send you a prayer that you say before the abortion and after the abortion. And that makes your abortion a satanic sacrifice and a right protected under their church.
That's madness.
Now, I have two ministries. I have All Saints Ministry, and that ministry